Must there be a yang to every ying? Does a demon stalk naughty children on December 5th? Is there an ancient evil Santa Claus from Central Europe? Today we test the believability of the Krampus.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
where we dive into the unknown and the unusual
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
Thank you for joining us on this Christmas episode.
Festive. It's a festive holiday special.
Yes.
It's a normal episode, but the topic.
But it is topical to Christmas because this is, I think, like the big one.
I would say, I feel like if you're a paranormal podcast, in your first 5 years, it's amazing we haven't done it yet. In your first 5 years of existence, if you last 5 years, you're going to do a December episode on Krampus.
Yeah, it's bound to happen.
There's probably 20 podcasts that have dropped one this month on Krampus, and that's okay.
Several, at least.
We appreciate that you're listening to ours.
Yeah. Last year we did Yule Lads, is that right?
That might have been 2 years ago.
What did we do for
Wendigo?
Oh, yeah.
2 years ago we did the Yule time.
I just like the Yule Lads.
And the cat thing.
And the giant cat, yeah. But this is Krampus, and it's related actually pretty closely to the Yule Lads. Like, when I was doing research, I saw they kind of
intertwined.
Yeah. I'll probably hear a little something in my throat.
Little froggy.
Little something.
You're going to be talking, and then just out of nowhere, you're just going to hear, Rubbit. I didn't know Krampus existed until that 2015 movie.
Yeah, that's kind of something we're going to talk about.
Adam Scott. Is that his name?
I have no idea.
He's either the character or the actor's name is Adam Scott, I think.
Adam Scott?
Yeah, he's from Parks and Rec. He's in Krampus. Have you seen Krampus?
No.
There's a terrifying scene of a jack-in-the-box eating a small child.
Oh, really?
Like
it's
a
scary?
lizard thing.
Is it legitimately scary?
The idea of it is horrifying.
Okay.
It's like it's a dark comedy film.
It's a dark comedy? I wonder if I liked it. Oh, I wonder if I would like it.
I think you would like it.
Okay.
We'll add to the list.
Yeah. So, before we get started, I want to shout out my sources. History Defined, History.com, Ancient Origins, all that's interesting.
So history was different from History Defined, right?
It is, yeah.
History Defined History. .hist.ory.
Yeah, it's like History Channel versus History Defined. So I'm going to do something a little bit special with this.
Ooh.
I'm going to start this episode with a poem. So this one's it's a poem called The Krampus. Hear the bells, Christmas bells, ringing in the distance. Past the moon, across the sky, we knew him in an instant. A small lad from the town in the valley below shouts, "Look up, to all, I can see Rudolph's bright nose." Way up there, the small reindeer pointing out the way, the gang's all here, as 12 more appear to guide Santa's sleigh. Santa brings a special glee, a sparkle to the eye, but brats take haste, the Krampus comes to darken the sky. The jolly old soul with heart of gold, Santa Claus is coming. With cloven hooves and goatish horns, the Krampus sends him running. As good Saint Nick will fill the toys, his magic red sack, the Krampus has a birch club strapped across his back. Much larger than his counterpart, with fur from head to toe, 2 horns large as antlers, and claws where hands should go. All the naughty children in rusty chains are bound. They'll smell the stench of brimstone as they rise up through the ground. The earth will start to rumble, and the fires all around. The pits will open wide, and he'll throw the children down. So sinister a creature, this frigid, hungry beast will eat their burning bodies for a crispy Christmas treat. Yay!
The Krampus.
That is by Kenneth Weidman, which I think it really sets the tone really nicely for what we're about to talk about.
Is that more of a modern poem? Because the way it's written,
that was written in like 2010.
Yeah, okay, that sounds right. The gang's all here kind of feels.
The gang's all here. There are a couple of other lines in there you could say were more modern.
Yeah.
But I like he had claws where hands should go. I like that one.
I think a good frame of reference for this episode and this topic is, and I'm bought in until the end.
Okay.
And by that, I don't mean until I die. I mean literally until the end of this episode, I'm bought in.
Mm-hmm.
And then that'll, But I think, like, you think about Santa Claus, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you talk, like it's like a known, parents, if you're listening, if you have young ones listening, distract them for like 30 seconds, all right? It's like a known thing in adults. Like Santa's not real, but we're all gonna collectively agree this is a thing in Hollywood movies, and kids just buy in. Like children's suspension of disbelief is so grand that they can believe that this man that goes around the whole world in one night is also at the mall and also at this Christmas event that is in their small hometown. Or, you know what I mean?
Or even when they get a little bit older, they still believe in Santa Claus, but the guy at the mall is a helper.
Right.
Yeah.
But that you need that frame of reference because imagine the same young mind that has no problem believing in Santa Claus, believing in Krampus. Because Krampus to us sounds horrifying, but also when you pair it with Saint Nick, the yin yang thing you were talking about, it's like, but it's a fun story. But you try to imagine. I'm going to do this. Try to imagine this story from the frame of reference of a 7 or an 8-year-old that is worried about not only are you bad this year, you're on Santa's naughty list, but you're going to awaken this hooved goat-like beast,
evil monster. Yeah, it's an interesting.
That's the frame of reference to keep this horrifying.
Yeah, exactly. But let's talk about where this started. It all started about over thousands of years ago. The Krampuslof, I think it's how it's pronounced, it's the night of the Krampus began being celebrated. And it was originally celebrated in southern Germany to the Swiss Alps and Western Austria. And I saw some arguments to this, but I think it started as a pagan tradition in the 12th century. And then it was adopted by Christianity. As St. Nicholas became a thing, this became its counterpart. Krampus himself is described as a horned, anthropomorphic, devil-like character. He has cloven, hooven feet, the horns of a goat, fangs that stick out, wild eyes, and a long, pointed tongue. And he's said to be covered in brown or black fur. Have you seen the cutouts of the wood where it's like the wooden cutouts where it's this creature and it's almost like a human face with the long tongue of Krampus?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Those disturb me the most, I think, because it looks almost normal rather than just the monster face Krampus. But the one where it's a normal face scares me.
Okay.
He's also said to be taller than a human, 8 to 9 feet tall. And it's also speculated that Krampus first came around as a symbol. So it's a symbolic gesture of these areas, they get cold in the winter. And he's symbolic of long nights and surviving these hard winter nights in the Alps.
So, if your uncle was out climbing in the harsh weather and died, you're like, oh, he went to Krampus's farm. He didn't die.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's also a way to keep people inside in the winter to not go out climbing in the middle of the winter.
Everyone's got that uncle, though. You gotta climb.
Uncle. I guess
Alps.
so.
And the winter is the Alps?
Yeah.
Okay. Alpine, right?
The Appalachians?
Yeah, the Appalachians.
Though he may not have started this way, he has somewhat become a counterpart to Santa Claus, right? The kind, merry man who brings presents, right? Santa Claus. We all know Santa Claus. But Krampus is a monster that comes and he punishes boys and girls for being naughty. Now, Santa Claus, think of it this way. Santa Claus is the carrot to being good, right? Krampus is the stick. The stick and the carrot. Reward, punishment.
Man, carrot's not that much of a reward. Just saying.
It is for a donkey.
I don't see people getting too hype for that carrot.
So Christianity kind of relies heavily on dichotomies. So in the good versus evil. So Santa Claus is that good that brings a reward, and Krampus is the one that brings the hurt, the bad, because that's fairness in Christianity. But if you take that a step higher, if you look at it even more broadly against Christianity, you could say that God rewards people, brings them to heaven when they die, and the devil punishes people for being sinful, right?
Sure.
In a sense, you can even see the characters of Santa Claus and Krampus representing those same ideas.
Santa is God.
Ooh.
in this
analogy, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And Krampus is even described as looking like the devil.
Yeah.
So I have this thought. We can save this for next year, I think. This will be a good episode in the future. But the conversation is that because so many people know about Santa, focus on Santa Claus around the holidays, Santa is a tulpa.
You talked about that in our Slenderman episode.
Yeah.
Because you described Santa as a tulpa.
I feel like we should even put that away even deeper for another Christmas year.
You can absolutely do that episode.
I want to hear you do it. That'd be so cool.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be interesting? Anyway, so we'll keep that idea that Santa is a tulpa, but we're going to do that another time. But I want you to think about how we focus on Krampus, because there's been, I'd say, a resurgence of Krampus.
Since the film?
Since the film, yeah. And not just in Austria or Germany or Switzerland, but I'd say worldwide.
And by that, you mean America?
Yes, I'd say, well, America controls a lot of the media that goes out, so therefore, yes. And because of the spark and interest in Krampus, I wonder if they sparked a little more than just creativity.
So you're wondering if they, like, the energy that we're putting into Krampus is now bringing this entity back.
Yeah, because he's being fed by movies and shown in popular media. And there's even a parade, the Krampuslauf, every year in Austria, where people dress up in representations of Krampus and march through the town. He may be the perfect representation of a tulpa because people have been focusing on him for years now. Not just like Santa is like, good nature, happiness. He is fear. He is being scared of being naughty because you'll be taken and eaten and killed. And tulpas feed off fear strongly. So yeah, that's my idea about that. What do you think?
Oh, I would say that for discussion.
Okay. All right. That's a fair point.
I'm buying in right now. If you make me talk about it right now, it's going to be really hard to do that. So I'm buying in.
Okay. So Krampus is not just known for looking scary, but he's also known to hurt adults and children alike. On the day of Krampus, on December 5th, that's the night known as Krampusnacht. Krampusnacht? I think I said it right. It takes place where people dress and drink, and they dress up as Krampus, and they run through the streets. And it said that Krampus appears, he takes his wrath out upon children.
You think he's like, wow, look at all these people dressed up as me. This is kind of dope.
He's got to be some kind of ego. He's got to be kind of like impressed, happy. Yeah.
There's like a costume judging contest by him. But imagine the person that goes all out. They like kill a goat, open it up, and they go inside. Well, I feel like that's something he'd be down with.
Probably.
And then they just go inside the body of the goat.
Yeah. Ew. Not only is he tall,
Tauntaun,
he has giant goat horns and claws, but he also carries a black leather bucket to put his captives in. So it's this like giant leather bucket, which I was like, why is it leather? But you ever get stuck to leather? Hurts.
Like he's in the cold though.
Yeah, but he's hot, I think.
He's hot?
Right, he's from hell. So he's hot.
I know. He's like when it's really cold outside, but you're really hot in your car and you roll the window down.
Yeah.
Imagine, because he's got claws. Like even acts that aren't meant to hurt you might hurt you. Like if he grabs you and he puts you in the bag, the act of him grabbing you with those claws.
Yeah. And, people add imagery and ideas to this all the time. Like the poem mentioned chains, like rusty chains, and like he locks up people and like carries them that way.
I feel like why do I remember this? I feel like it's like a symbolism for like being something with the devil. It's like the chains are like symbolism for how he's like not banished, but something like that. I'm trying to remember. It's like somewhere I read or we talked about before, like the chains were like a symbol for how he was like held back by the devil, or like there's a word that is eluding me right now. It's like he is not controlled by, but like, do you know what I'm saying? Like he doesn't have free reign. Like he is under the control
bound,
of the bound. The chains that he has are being bound by the devil, and it's kind of like a symbol of that.
Okay. That's interesting. I don't know if I saw that.
Well, I'm throwing it out there.
I appreciate it. His rage, Krampus's rage, varies, but I've seen as mild as just spanking children with his, it's like he's got like a bundle of birch trees or wood, or even just like a birch rod, and he strikes the kids with that too.
It was 2023, be the remote control. Be the Roku remote.
So it's a birch rod.
Just to be clear, I don't spank my son.
No.
I know it's like relevant, but I don't do that.
But he's also said to have chains and lock these children in the chains and literally drag them to hell and devour and eat them.
Do we get into the criteria for naughty versus maybe just had a bad year? like Krampus, like if he's gonna make the trip, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, if your child has a bad day at school, that's one thing. If they punch a student and throw him down the stairs, you have to go pick him up. You know, like the parent, you have to make that trip.
So is it like one mess up versus like consistent mess ups?
Or, you know, like even one mess up could be very bad if you know, like you
kill a kid,
you know, accidentally drown them, you know?
Yeah.
But you know, it's not like you pushed your little brother and he bumped his head and started crying. You know, it's like you were play fighting. You know, there's different varying levels.
Yeah, I think it's pretty strict for Krampus. I think he comes up. I think you just gotta be on your best behavior.
He comes, you know, he comes in. Does he go down the chimney, or how does he come into your house? He says F the chimney. He just busts through the.
Yeah, he just comes on in. Yeah.
Hey, little Timmy, I saw you push your brother down the stairs last week. That was pretty fucked up. Ready to go to hell?
I think that's pretty close. And he comes in, or he'll just give you a spanking. Maybe that's why there's like differences. Like, so like there's a kid who's consistently messing up through the year, doing terrible things. That's the kid he drags to hell. There's a kid that just like, you know.
So he comes on the 5th?
The 5th, yes.
So Santa comes on the 25th. So you already, you know, okay, here's how you can make it even scarier. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Now, you'd have to change the whole system, but like, I think we've talked about this before. What's worse? If you slammed your thumb in your trunk, or I told you you're going to slam your thumb in your trunk.
Yeah,
today.
it's the anticipation. Right?
Yes. Imagine if Krampus came on the 26th and your present on the 25th was a warning.
Oh, no.
Like you have this big box, and every parent in every Santa movie where they don't believe in him, they just assume, I don't know where this present came from. Makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
And little Timmy gets the present, opens it up, and there's no present inside. There's just a piece of paper. And it says, you're getting that birch.
Oh, no.
You're getting that birch.
That's terrible for Timmy.
And he has no idea.
What did Timmy do? Something bad. But
I don't know. What did Timmy do, Charlie?
I think he stole money from his brother. It's messed up.
How does brother get money? He stole money from his mom.
Yeah, there you go.
They're both getting that birch.
So that's all I have for Krampus.
There's no criteria?
No, not really. It's just said be naughty.
Okay. I'm still bought in, though, so I believe this all to be true.
So we're actually going to go to the encounters right now.
There's encounters?
Okay. So I couldn't find any real encounters.
I wonder why. It's because all the kids got.
But I do have a story. And, you know, even if there is a truth, a nugget of truth to the story, there's something here, right? And despite not finding any real encounters yet, this feeds into the idea, right? This is one of those things, those stories that feed into the idea of Krampus, giving life, giving strength. I want you to keep that in mind when you listen to it, that you are in some facet feeding into the legend of Krampus.
That said, and that was very eloquently said. That said, that's another way of being like, we know that sometimes these stories aren't 100% real. We know that. You know, if we find a story on Reddit and it's very interesting and it's written incredibly well, sometimes it's like, they remembered exactly what they said in that moment.
Yeah.
We understand there's an entertainment element to it as well. But I think it's important because then somebody will be like, I can't believe Tyler and Charlie thought that was a real story from Reddit about Krampus. Well, there you go.
Okay, everyone and Tyler, let's settle in.
Thanks for including me, man.
Let me tell you a story. The Krampus, a short story of evil old returning. Ivan sat on the cottage roof, mending tiles in the heat of the August sun. His back ached. He could see his daughter enjoying the garden shed, leaning against the warm bark of the old apple tree, playing her guitar. She paused to write down the music she was composing and experienced a surge of irritation. Julia, have you noticed me working while you're doing nothing? She paused, her shaggy black hair away from her face. Her classical features could have graced a Greek vase, but were spoiled in anger at his interruption. How couldn't I notice? You were making so much noise. Can't see me trying to work too? Ivan shook his head disbelievingly, and was about to raise his voice in anger when an owl called, its quavering cry unnatural in the bright sunlight. Another replied from close by. He scanned the surrounding forest using a large hand to shield his eyes from the sun, wondering what could have awoken them. A faint memory stirred with it and came first a twinge of fear. In the distance, the roofs and spires of St. Ostia shined sleepily in the hazy heat, until a barrage of heavy clouds slid across the sky, dimming the light to a sickly green. The first hailstones exploded on the hot tiles. By the time they'd entered the cottage, the hail was torrential, coating the garden white. Julia was putting eyeshadow on in the front tarnished mirror in the gloomy hall. She pointedly ignored him as she shook the hail from his clothes. "Are you seeing the boy again?" Ivan rumbled, trying to sound neutral. "Yes, if you must know. He'll be here any moment. And his name's David, by the way." Ivan counted to 5. "Don't be late back, all right? Before midnight. And you're only 17. She looked at him, as if considering whether to make an issue or not. "We're seeing friends. Stay cool." Later, when he managed to achieve cool, Ivan sat reading his Bible, soothed by this solitude until an unwelcome sound intruded. Water running, somewhere upstairs. Another memory, another scalp tinge. He put down his book with a sigh and listened to pattering footsteps, the scratches of nails on wood, perhaps a squirrel in the room above. He grunted irritably and heaved himself to his feet. He entered the bathroom and shook his head. One of the bath taps was running. Ivan turned it off tightly and opened the bedroom door cautiously. He could not find the source of the noise, and so he closed the windows. He also shut the airing cupboard door before descending. The air had become chill, and the owls were calling incessantly. He felt tense, and his head ached. Before Julia returned, Ivan had turned off the same tap twice more. Each time, the airing cupboard door was open, the brass door knob icy cold. He knew that it had returned. When she entered, he had to tell her, "Julia, listen, we need to leave here. It's not safe. Pack your things." She tossed her head defiantly, reminding him of her mother. "You can't order me around like that. Tell me what's going on." He raised his arms and let them fall. "Can't you do anything you're told? I will not explain why to you, Julia. Do as I say for once." His accent thickened with anger. She jutted her lips. "No way. You can't hurt me like Mom. But I'm not going anywhere. I'll tell the police if you try to make me." Voice rose until she was shouting. Ivan looked around and put a finger to his lips and whispered, "For God's sake, please do not shout. I never hurt her. I loved her. Why won't you believe me?" She clenched her fists. "Because no one else could have done it. I saw the bruises when she came down to breakfast each morning. I hate you." She hissed the words at him. He sat down wearily by the simple pine table. "Listen, she left us to stay alive. It would have killed her if she had stayed, like he killed her mother." He regretted the words as soon as they were spoken. What happened to your mother? I don't want to talk about her. It was a long time ago." "Whatever, I'm not leaving this house." His heavy brow creased. "As you wish. We'll talk about this tomorrow when you are calm. It is time you knew the truth. It will not be easy." Ivan slept fitfully, haunted by images of his childhood. His family had traveled along mountains from one country to another before settling in Slovenia, and his grandmother Petra lived as a recluse. However, on his 10th birthday, she had been unusually friendly and invited him to her tiny cottage for tea and cake. Once inside, her mood changed. "Ivan, I have to tell you something important." She spoke in a hoarse whisper, interrupted by wheezes. He was not sure he wanted to know. "Eat up, boy. We must go to the church. It's not safe to talk here." It was a harvest. The warm air still pooled within the rings of the mountain that encircled her village. He followed her gnarled figure across a sun-baked square into the dim, musty church. To his surprise, she locked the heavy doors behind her and dragged him into a pew, and the small boy shivered in the blood-red light of the stained glass window. It depicted a priest defying a demon. The creature was small but terrifying, surrounded by a halo of black flame, and it seemed to stare at the boy. Petra sat next to him and whispered in his ear about the Krampus. Half demon, half goat, shaggy and horned with long tongue, the Krampus beat naughty children and even took them to hell or devoured them. How it gained its size was by feeding on fear, sometimes a tiny imp or other times a monster. How it masqueraded around as other spirits, appearing as Santa Claus or Boggarts, the way it preceded generations in search for something inexplicable. When she finished, he ran home and cried in his room. Birthday forgotten. By November, Petra's tale had come to life. Bruises started to appear on his mother's arms and face until they were a mass of blue and purple welts. After Krampus knocked, she lost her sight and could no longer work. and the other villagers shunned her. She spent her last months in the nunnery, dying mysteriously in her sleep, quickly buried. Even now, Ivan dreamed of the demon in the church window. He saw the Krampus opening his bedroom door in a mist of darkness, a bent, crooked thing dragging chains and holding a hammer in his clawed hand. Ivan must have dozed because he awoke with a start. He could hear a crinkling noise like a fishing reel being slowly turned. He arose and peered in the moonlit garden through the veil of frost and saw nothing, but feeling of malevolence was almost tangible. At 3 a.m., Julia came in, clutching blankets about her. I heard something scraping the window. It sounded like fingernails. She shivered. God, why is it so cold? I'm freezing. He stroked her hair, ignoring the blasphemy. It's all right. You heard the branches in the wind. Now, I will sleep in that big chair in your room. When Julia woke in the morning, Ivan had already left to work on a house in town, and so after breakfast, she settled into the garden to work on her music. The mix of emotion and melody absorbed her until a harsh scream made her jump. A tiny owl landed in the apple tree and stared straight at her with glowing eyes, but something else was watching. A malignant presence was in the darkness. Under the rhododendrons, she could hear a low clicking like a Geiger counter. Fighting the urge to run, she peered closely and froze. A earth-brown face, ancient and cruel, was staring at her, framed by the leaves. It was gone in an instant, but she caught a glimpse of its pointed ears and discolored teeth. She was so frightened, she could barely breathe, and a powerful instinct made her grab her guitar and run for the house. While Ivan returned, the door was locked, and Julia was organizing her sheet music distractedly. She hugged him tightly. Something's in the garden. It was horrible. It was listening to me sing. To her surprise, he took her hands. Look at your arms. She gasped as the numerous small welts, as if they had been beaten. They looked like Mom's. I don't know what caused it. I didn't feel anything. I didn't do anything. The significance of it brought tears to her eyes. I'm so sorry, Dad. Ivan shook his head. It was the Krampus. His voice was low. It has found us. She gripped his hand. Is it dangerous? It's very dangerous, despite its size. The Krampus are jealous and they feed on anger, but it makes them angry too. She felt sick. The scraping the window. I was trying to get in my room. Ivan went upstairs. His daughter was close behind. He opened the window and showed her the deep scratches and cuts in the wood. See, it has long nails on each hand, sharp like a knife, and if it attacks, it goes for the eyes first. He hooked her fingers outside of the window. Outside, the wind was rising and thunder grumbled. Have you seen a Krampus? He shook his head. No, old Petra told me that they carry a weapon, a hammer or an axe. I think they have a bag of clay they can build with. Cannot catch them or hurt them, and no one would try because their vengeance would be terrible. She told me that they are always freezing cold. They love music, warm places, and the sounds of running water. They see through the eyes of owls. So what do? It will only leave when we give it the perfect present, something it wants very much. But if it does not like the offering, beware. Julia frowned. So what does it want from us? I don't know. Before we offered everything we had, it only became more violent. We must think again. Meanwhile, no raised voices or bad tempers. That's why it hurt me, because I was angry with you, she said to herself, rubbing her arms. I have a gift. It's me. It wants me. I know what to do. No, he raged. We have to go now. Pack your bags. It's your turn to trust me, she begged, squeezing her rough hand. Please let me try. Julia spent much of the next 2 days in her bedroom, Ivan hearing her singing and playing music, gradually taking shape, a sculpture of sound. As she composed, the weather grew wilder, and sleet rattled the windows. From time to time, Ivan patrolled the house fearfully and left the outside tap running in a hope that Krampus would stay in the garden. But when darkness fell, the owls screamed and hoots began and hooting down the chimney, and Ivan knew it was somewhere near the house listening to her. The next morning, no birds dared sing under the leaden sky. The leaves had started to turn rusted even though it was midsummer. Julia walked across the land and settled under the apple tree with her guitar, whilst Ivan stood on the patio, watching fearfully. Then she began to play, and her voice joined in. Its softness expressed a deep sadness and joy. Song pulled at his heart. It came. The light shrank away, so that the Krampus was shrouded in darkness, and it clicked angrily. It was no longer small. It was huge, a shadowy figure. Without thinking, Ivan shouted in Slovenian, "Leave her alone. You have no right." Ivan did not see the Krampus move, but it was right in front of him instantly. An immense weight seemingly to bear down on his neck, forcing him to his hands and knees, staring at the cloven hooves of the thing. He felt nauseous. as if tumbling over and over, unaware of the ice glazing his skin, with the 2 long daggers of bone prickling at his eyelids. But Julia's voice cut through the senses, growing in emotion, singing for his life, and the Krampus turned away from him, loping back to her. Ivan's head swam, and he blacked out. He regained consciousness moments later and knew instantly that the Krampus had gone, but Julia was still sitting under the tree, pale and unmoving. Ivan staggered across the frosty grove to her, shouting out her name. "Dear God, please be all right," he prayed, and she opened her eyes. He knelt beside her, ashamed of his cowardice, as warm sunlight broke through the clouds and blackbirds began to sing. "It returned to whoever it came from," she said. "It wanted to hear love."
He was a softie.
So that was the story.
He doesn't know about CDs or MP3s. Like, you can buy it on iTunes, bro.
Yeah, you can download
Apple Music.
All right, so let's go to the discussion. Now it's time of the episode we'd like to stop and thank all of those that have joined our Patreon. We'd like to thank Catalina, Richard, and right on the edge there, right before we start recording, Katie. Thank you for joining our Patreon. It means so much to us. What are some of the things that you can get on Patreon, Tyler? What's something you want to highlight?
Listen, the end of the year is almost here, which means...
Did you plan that rhyme?
No. It means that the enamel pin for our not tier is about to switch over, meaning if you join anytime before December 31st, you won't get it. It's going to take time to get to you, but you will lock in. You will get an enamel pin, our exclusive not tier 2023 BTB enamel pin. But once the clock strikes whatever in Ohio, maybe we'll give you California. On January 1st, it is now 2024 enamel pin time. Which, if you're already in the not tier, once the new year comes, you're locked in. You're going to get that enamel pin. We're having it designed right now. We'll announce that later. But the only way and the only time that you can get our very first ever Patreon exclusive not tier enamel pin is by joining our not tier between now and December 31st. It's exclusive. It's awesome. It's a little enamel pin. It says Believable 2023. It has our neon logo on it.
Yeah, so if you've been thinking about it, now's the time to get in there before the end.
Right. And if you haven't gotten it yet and you're a member of the not tier, you will get it. Even if you don't get it shipping-wise before the end of the year, you're good. As soon as you join, you are good this year. So if you like those collector items things and you like enamel pins, check that out. But you also, if you're in that tier long enough, you also get a shirt and a hoodie. And every content we put out is available.
All the content.
Yeah.
So much content.
What about you, Charlie? What would you like to highlight from our Patreon?
Something I want to shout out is Remembering the Bazaar. Co-op game, Tyler and I against Ben, brings back old episode typically. And we have to try to remember everything that happened because Ben will ask us obscure questions. What were you wearing on the day?
Yeah, that's a joke, but they are obscure.
Yeah.
They are obscure.
But it's a lot of fun because we have to we bounce back with each other. We try to figure out what we're even thinking back then. God knows.
We really try to fit in a bunch of different types of content. Like engagement with you guys with mailbag Q&A, and we do a voicemail clip, and we do Google Hangouts. We watch movies together, Google Hangouts. Also behind the scenes, we do some behind the scenes stuff. We'll do Beyond the Bazaar, which is just kind of about things happening behind the scenes of recording. Director's Cuts, where we listen to previous episodes, quizzes on episodes. Then there's the merch aspect of it too.
Yeah, Patreon's full, man.
We try to cover a lot of different bases, horror movie reviews. So if you like the podcast and you like what we're putting out there, mini encounter episodes.
Yeah.
Go check out our Patreon. Tons of stuff there.
But let's get back to the episode. I'm tired of talking.
That's not good for a podcast.
I know. All right, so...
But trust me, I also understand.
Listen, you gotta tell me, are you still bought in?
No, we're at the point. I put... It's, you know what it's like?
What's it like?
It's like when you want to look good. You want to look good. And you're like, man, these pants, this shirt, I'm going to feel so uncomfortable sitting at that dinner table and whatever we do after dinner, because stuff happens after dinner when you're out with friends. This is I just got home.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at these pants and I'm looking at this shirt and then I'm looking at my joggers and I'm looking at that oversized t-shirt and I'm just... That's me right now. I just took off Krampus.
Okay.
And
All
it
right.
is it was a load. He is a heavy motherfucker. And I'm feeling good now.
So, were you entertained by the stories at least?
Oh, I love, dude. A lot of paranormal stuff that I don't believe, I still find deeply entertaining.
Yeah.
I'm a horror movie person
Yeah.
at heart. A lot of horror movies I don't believe in, but I I'm proud of the fact that I don't believe in all this stuff.
Mhm.
Like, I need to be honest with you and with the listeners. And if I believed everything, that'd be bad. And you believe more than me, but even you don't believe everything.
That's true. I don't.
But that doesn't mean I don't find value and entertainment in these stories, because I absolutely do.
This is what that's for. This story is entertainment, I think. It's
for it serves a greater purpose in terms of children.
It's a warning,
Yeah,
essentially.
like the Kelpie, stay away from the water, and
So,
don't ride random horses.
Yeah, don't do that or grab its bridle. Does the idea of Krampus keep Krampus alive? Do you think there's any ideology behind that?
Well, let me ask you this question:
Okay.
Do I believe in Tulpas, Charlie?
No, you don't.
Here's what
not.
Here's what I believe in. I believe in the power, because it's a thought form energy ghost. I'll never forget that.
Well, there you go.
Do I believe in the power of thought? Like, do I believe in personal self-actualization? And if somebody thinks that they're gonna, mentally feels like I'm going to succeed in life versus someone who's like, I'm unlucky,
Yeah.
nothing works out for me ever. I believe there's the power in that thought that you can't control a lottery ticket, you can't control, your own skill set and things like that in terms of like physical attributes. But I believe that you can sway aspects of your life based on the way you think about life. Do I believe in the collective unconscious? To a certain degree.
You are like 2 steps away. You were almost there.
To a certain degree, I believe the collective unconscious the media helps with that a ton.
Absolutely.
It's like when the submarine thing happened, that was everywhere. The Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift thing. But also just like as a human species, I feel like there are things that we latch on to. And that's just, that it perpetuates. And I get that. And also, finally, and I don't perfectly subscribe to this. I'm actually curious if you've heard of this. It's in the conspiracy realm. But there's also subconscious programming, if you're familiar with that.
No, not really.
And I'm going to explain it poorly.
Okay.
And I'm not saying I subscribe to this. I don't want to be like, I heard Tyler talk about this and he believes in that. There are people that believe in subconscious programming, which I think to a certain degree is it's basically priming people. Like there are a lot of COVID deniers.
Okay.
There are COVID deniers that believe in the subconscious programming that for years leading up to 2020, there was imagery and things of like health and masks and things like that. So that when it happened, like people were kind of already with the program. Like, oh, this is what we do. Like I even saw something, this doesn't particularly relate to what I just said about COVID, but it was like the 2012 Olympic Games. There was like a big Grim Reaper and a bunch of hospital beds and stuff in some of the displays. And they're like, could that have been programming for COVID to come?
That's
8 years
interesting.
Later? I'm not saying this is true. I'm just saying that this is out there. But there's like what I'm saying. There's different layers of like what thought processes could do. I have a very difficult time believing that enough people believing in something that never existed could create an entity. Like we did Slender Man. And in Slender Man, we talk about Santa Claus. I believe in certain things feeding off energy. If it already, I don't think we could create something with thought. Like, I think if something already exists, even in sports, right? Like, if somebody's a heat check, they keep shooting it, it can, or like an injury. If somebody gets injured on the field and it's a team captain, people might rally around them. It's like, how do you take this energy? Yeah. So I do believe in energy, momentum, putting that thought stuff out there. But I don't think we can think something hard enough that on its own. Like we could think something and then someone creates something that's kind of like the second Human Centipede. That's kind of the dude made it because he saw the movie regardless. But I don't think Krampus could not exist. The story comes out. Everyone puts this energy into it. And then it suddenly becomes a thing. And going back, so what were you alluding to? Because you were saying more recently in the last 10 years, whatever, you didn't say 10 years, but recently you said people are putting all this thought in Krampus. Yeah. What's come of that though? It's been referenced in
podcasts,
But
obviously.
what's come of it?
What's come of it? There's more awareness of it now. Like there's movies, because of that, there's more of a social media awareness of Krampus now.
Right, but what has come of the so you're saying it's more out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what has come from it being more out there?
I guess there isn't really.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
It's
I haven't seen a Krampus.
But that's what I mean. Is like you're saying it's growing. Like it could be a tulpa because more people are thinking about it. But if there was like an encounter, like let me put it this way: if there were more quote real encounters in the last 10 years than ever before, then that would help your case.
Absolutely.
But that's what I was thinking earlier.
There's not.
I didn't want to say it because when you asked me, I was like, let's save it for the discussion.
Yeah.
But my thought is like, if that's true, then what's come of it?
If that's true, I would have encounters. So I feel the same way you feel about it too.
But I also don't believe in tulpas, so I'm biased.
I know, technically a tulpa is one person's thought form energy ghost. There's another name for a group thought form energy ghost. I can't remember the name right now. Probably talk about that next year. We talk about Santa Claus.
Go for it.
But I understand what you're saying. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about tulpas. I'm not sure how I feel about them.
They should have named him Saint Dick.
Why?
Instead of like Saint Nick.
Oh, I think that was a nickname back then.
They didn't have humor back then.
Not like that.
In the 700s. Imagine the first person laughing. Like, this is strange. What happened? All I did was see my friend fall and not get hurt too bad.
Well, let's go back to what you said. I don't think this could have existed and then be thought into existence. Do you think there's any way this entity could just exist? Now, let's back up a little bit. I know you believe in demons.
It's terrifying. I'm not saying I 100% believe.
Okay. That's fair.
Let me put it this way. And I've said this before with other things we've encountered and talked about. The more specific you get, the easier it is to tear it down.
That's true.
Like, when you just say vague demon, you're like, okay, I could get around the idea of that, especially if you're religious or spiritual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when you start getting more specific, it's easier. It's like, you should have stopped while you were ahead.
Yeah.
Like, do I believe this entity, this Krampus, is real? No. But what if, around Christmas time, someone sees a shadow figure, a real demon? It's like I think the idea of Krampus in, like, the look, like the goat, like, I mean, because it references so much from other demonic entities. But do, like, a counter to Santa, who I don't believe is real, who comes for the naughty children.
So what if it is just an entity that appears? What if it's a type of entity, right, that appears around Christmas time?
But it doesn't.
It doesn't. You're right. There's no modern encounters.
That's right.
So we don't have any encounters. So it's hard to back any of this up.
It's so much easier to disbelieve, But even, like, I would never traumatize my son and be like, finish your dinner. Otherwise, have you ever seen Krampus? Let me ask you this. How aware of Krampus were you before the film? And I know you haven't seen the film. I didn't know it existed at all.
Probably college.
Okay, so 2010s.
Yeah.
2010s, the last, 12, 13 years.
Yeah. Because I think I was aware of the parade.
That makes sense. It's crazy how, like, I couldn't imagine using that as like a warning sign to not. It's interesting too because it doesn't actually teach, like, it's so roundabout. Like, don't do this, otherwise this entity will get you. Just be like, hey, don't do it because you get hurt. I guess you need the fear. I guess
fear was a much bigger contributing factor to the unknown back, thousands of years ago. I think. Yeah,
now you'll get some nerd 8-year-old. They'll be like, I googled Krampus and I listened to this podcast about it.
Yeah,
and great story at the end, but they went unbelievable. So I'm not going to ever eat green beans ever again.
Exactly.
Sorry to that parent. So we should go believable for parents, actually.
Just
all this shit's real.
Yeah.
All this shit is real. He's actually hiding under your bed right now, defining the criteria of whether or not he's going to birch you.
Just that tongue slipping around underneath there.
Tickling your foot that hangs off the side of the bed.
It's like, oh, it's just my dog. It's not your dog. It's Krampus.
No, I already took the pants off. It's unbelievable.
I believe. I go with unbelievable. On our scale.
Say it proudly.
I will. On our scale of believable, viable, skeptical, and unbelievable, I will go unbelievable in Krampus. What a sode. What an episode.
Episode.
What a sode.
Epipop.
Krampus. the Krampus. I think, personally, Tyler, I think we should release the Segway Krampus.
Maybe we'll do that on Patreon.
That's what I meant. Yeah, on Patreon.
If you join our anytime. Well, yeah, anytime. Anyone. We can open it up. If you're on our Patreon, we'll probably drop our previous podcast episode 3 years ago. I don't remember anything we said about that.
I don't remember a thing.
I wonder if the chains thing
was it me or you?
It was probably you. It was probably you. I'm going to say it was probably... Well, you know what? I'm pretty sure it's you. Yeah.
Because, the switching off thing has always been a thing we've done. But anyway, thank you for listening to this episode on Krampus. I know Let's Get Haunted recently did this topic as well. I suggest giving them a listen too about the same
they're
thing.
awesome. Shout out Let's Get Haunted, the Haunties.
Allie and Nat, appreciate you guys. But if you like this episode and you would like to tell us some way, if you're on Apple, you could leave a 5-star review and say something like, "Man, that was great." Oh man, that's good. Good stuff. Or if you're on Spotify, what can you do?
You can comment directly on the episode. Let us know your thoughts specifically on this episode and on every episode. And if you want more bonus content, you want to hear our other podcasts take on Krampus, you can go to Patreon. 4 different tiers, tons of bonus content. Again, don't forget the not tier enamel pin is gone after December 2023. And then we'll be on to our 2024 pin, which we'll have news about that soon. But thank you, everybody, for listening. We appreciate you. As always, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre.
A podcast as bizarre as you are.